we are going to be doing a question under measurement, which says to determine the weight of an object you could. So that means we have to find which object can we use to determine the weight of an object. Okay, so before we delve into the question, let's understand what we refer to as weight. What is weight? Weight is just simply the heaviness of an object. Heaviness of an object. And for you to know the heaviness of an object, there's always something that must be in place. And what is that? Two things. Firstly, we have to know the mass of the object, and also we have to have the acceleration due to gravity. Now, when we know the mass of the object and the acceleration due to gravity, we'll be able to know how heavy the substance is. Are you seeing that? Now, please have this in mind that mass is not the same thing as weight. Many people try to confuse that. Now, what is mass? Mass is just the content of a substance. Mass is the content of a substance. The weight is the heaviness of a substance. If you look at our mass also, mass is always constant. But weight varies. Weight varies. Now, why does weight vary? Is because recall that weight is equals to mass times gravity, and this our gravity is 9.8 meter per second square. So it's not a constant value. Sometimes it can be 9.9, can be 9.7, depending on the location it is on the earth. So because of that, it affects the weight of an object. So let's look at the option. Which of these instruments can be used to measure weight or can be used to measure mass? Okay, so let's look at the question. What do we use to measure weight, or what do we use to measure mass of an object? There are majorly two kinds of instruments. We call the beam balance and also we call the spring balance. Now, the beam balance, most of the time, they usually measure the content of an object. That means the content. For instance, let's assume I have a beaker, and I want to know the content that are in the beaker. I make use of my beam balance. Are you seeing that? Because beam balance does not really need to know the heaviness of the beaker, rather it only needs to know the content of the beaker. And also we have an advanced beam balance that we call chemical beam balance. Chemical beam balance. That is an advanced kind of beam balance. Now let's move on to the next one. The next one is a spring balance. The spring balance is only used to measure the heaviness of an object. Heaviness of an object. It means how heavy an object could be. Are you seeing that? So that's just it. I'd love to give a diagram. Okay, let me quickly give a diagram. A diagram of a beam balance. A diagram of a beam balance looks something similar to this. As you can see, this side we put our object here and our object here. It's only meant to measure the content of the object. But when you have a spring balance is something that reads like this. Then on this side we have a hook. So this hook, we are going to hang our object at this side. Then the reading comes from here. As you can see, it depends on acceleration due to gravity that helps us to measure the weight of the object. So we make use of spring balance to measure the weight of one object. So let's go back to our option and see the question we have there. Okay, coming back to our option, the question says to determine the weight of an object, you could use a beam balance. I told you we can only use a beam balance to determine the mass, so beam balance is wrong. We can use a spring balance. Yes, you can use a spring balance to measure the weight of an object or find the force necessary to give certain acceleration. That's also wrong. Use none of the method above or use any of the method above. So the right answer is option B. Option B stands as the right answer.